My name is Kirk Webb, and we'll kind of go around the table, introduce everybody. And I work with Lakeside Fire District. I'm the fire marshal there. And we've started a lot of much more cooperative efforts between all the fire districts and even local law enforcement agencies, Forest Service, and things like that, because we are in such a serious time with the lack of moisture. So we're here to talk about how we can protect our homes living in the wildland-urban interface.
My name's Mary Springer. I'm the Navajo County Emergency Management Director, and we work with all these entities to help coordinate efforts in case we do have an emergency within Navajo County, and we also assist other counties if there's an emergency, such as we did in the Wallow Fire.
I'm Brad Provost. I'm an Operational Support Commander for Show Low Police Department.
I'm Dave Reisner. I'm the Fire Management Officer for the Lakeside Ranger District here on the Apache Sitting Ridge National Forest. And they bring me in to explain what the conditions of the forest are and what type of fire season we may see this year.
I'm Allison Hefner. I work underneath Mary Springer with Emergency Management for Navajo County.
And I'm Tony Garver. I'm a lieutenant with the Navajo County Sheriff's Office.
I'm Brian Russell. I'm the fire marshal for Show Low, and I work hand in hand with Kirk. And tonight we're going to try and present a program for you that's entitled Ready, Set, Go, which will hopefully answer some of the questions about how to prepare for a wildfire and in case it comes up on us.
And to get started with, we're going to start with Dave Reisner. He's going to go over like you said, the conditions of the forest and where we're at there.
Okay. I usually start out with this talk. We went into a drought in about 1997 here in the state, and there does not seem to be any end in sight with that drought, although we have had wet years in between, but nothing consecutive to where we could get out of a drought situation. It generally takes 3 years of good moisture to get the pine trees out of a drought stress situation. The dendrology lab down at Tucson at U of A has told us that every 500 years there's a 40-year drought in the Southwest. And it had been 700 years since we had seen that drought here in the Southwest. So that's part of our situation. The other part of the situation is that a fire has been taken out of the ecosystem here in the Southwest. And that has allowed the undergrowth and the trees to multiply way too fast. Mother Nature used to thin it out and reduce the tree densities and keep the fuels on the ground at a benign level. And we used to have very moderate ground fires running through that would continually every 1 to 10 years that would clean off that forest floor. And that's how the ecosystem here in this ponderosa pine forest has adapted until European settlement came in and we started being very good at putting out fires. Just to let you know where we're at right now, conditions are, what kind of fire behavior we're going to have. And this, like I said, this is energy release component. It's a fuel model that basically represents a closed canopy ponderosa pine type of forest. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the energy release component, that scale. And then down on the bottom, it is the months and the days of the year. And basically, this is a trend showing us where the dryness of it measures the dryness of the fuels. And the energy release component, it is a representative of the amount of heat given from the flaming front of a fire. So like I started out with at the beginning on the red line up on top, that is the maximum that we ever have recorded. And once you get up above the 90th or 97th percentile up there, I can explain that a little bit later. At the 90th percentile, that was basically 2001 or 2002 when we had the Rodeo Chattiskai fire. The dashed line there on the bottom is 2013, where we were last year. The gray line is the medium or the average of what the energy release component is across the season. And then the blue line is where we are now, and that's basically where we were the middle of March. And you can see there we're basically about a month ahead of time. So you can go ahead and click on to the next one. And here we are on last week. The ERC was showing, the arrow went away again. So the ERC, came up to about 60%. It moderated out here the last couple of days. This is a 3-day period. It's going to climb back up because like today, we had single-digit relative humidity for about, I didn't check it at the end of the day, but I think it was probably about a 6 or 7 hour period. We were in that below 15% relative humidity. Yesterday was the same thing, below 15% relative humidity. And so that will be climbing back up. And there again, we're still about a month ahead of average. I think we're going to climb right back up into the extreme or the highest that we have ever recorded here very quickly unless we get some kind of moisture. We're so dry now that even if we get some moisture, it will dry out very fast, especially if we get some wind on it. The difference between this year and 2002, I couldn't remember all this, but it was explained to me today after I'd asked the question. In 2002, basically 2001, 2002 were both very dry years. Our lake levels were very low. Our stock tanks were almost had nothing in them if they had anything at all. And so we had, into that drought for about 8 years or so. And with 2 years of back-to-back extreme drought. Well, this year is a little bit different because last summer we did have a very good, robust monsoon season. The weather people called it a double monsoon. They gave us a good grass growth. And so we now have another component that we didn't have in 2002, which is an extra fuel out there being the grass that we have, what we call holdover grass from last year. We didn't have the snow to mash that grass down so it burns extremely well. Go ahead and switch to the next one. This next one on the energy release component is a little bit busier, but if you look at it and figure it out here, is what we're depicting here is there again what we had in 2002, which is that kind of a greenish olive color with the dash dot, and that's where we were in 2002. Or excuse me, 2002. And we're getting close to that right now. They have not run this chart here for me for about a month, but I would put it up here, up just above that 60 on the energy release component is where we are now. And as we get warmer and we get more of these very low humidity days, it's going to climb on that scale. I think I've got it explained that everybody knows that we've got a very serious fire season coming up. This next map here, this is a display of the different fuel treatments and vegetation treatments that we have going on in the Lakeside District. And if I could get this mouse to work, I'd show you there in Show Low South what we have been doing in the past.
Right in through here?
Yeah, that area right in there, and then over to the east of the Highway 60. Some of that stuff over there, the purple stuff, that's in the Rodeo Chetasky. That's where we had been doing the salvage after Rodeo Chetasky. If you come over farther to the east, but just to show you, Show Low South has always been a concern of ours. The last timber sale that we had in the area was in the early 90s. And we treated that a lot different than what we would a normal timber sale. We made the contractor or the purchaser chip the majority of the slash, the limbs and stuff left over. What they didn't chip, we made them lop it to 1 foot, which normally they just lop it to 3 foot. And then we had a lot of machine piling and we burned that stuff. We used the money that came off of that sale for what we call brush disposal to burn those in for thinning. And we did a lot of what we call pre-commercial thinning in the tree sizes from 6 inches down to 1 inch. That's, like I said, that sale was in the early 1990s. In the latter part of the 1990s, I can't remember what it was, but just as we were getting ready to do a pulpwood size sale in there, which would take stuff out from 6 inches up to 16 inches, the paper mill went 100% recycling. So we lost that opportunity. We can't do any treatments in the forest unless we follow the National Environmental Protection Act, which is enacted by Congress. It's not our rule, it's their rule. We got to follow it. So we did an environmental analysis in '98, and we treated a large portion to the east, or excuse me, to the west of Show Low, and what we call the 135 road where Bison and Torion is now. And a lot of that was in burning. The EA came up with some like 6,000 acres that we could burn and only 400 acres that we could treat mechanically. Well, we did a lot of that burning, and we did that mechanical treatment incidentally right along the 135 road. That is one factor, the reason why that fire, the Rodeo Chetaskai fire, was stopped on the 135 road and didn't progress any further to the east. One factor. There's many more, but I don't want to mention them all. Later on, we decided that we needed to do more mechanical treatment out there. In 1998, we had another environmental analysis, or excuse me, in the early 2000s, probably about 2003, when we had the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. We did another environmental analysis on what we call a categorical X exclusion, where we didn't have to go through the full NEPA process. To shorten the story up, we had everything ready to go, had started doing it, had about half of it complete. A judge in California sided with the Sierra Club that sued the Forest Service and shut down all of those categorical exclusions that we had. And that one was Show Low South. We had gotten Woodland Park treated. We got camps, Camp Toddy, Camp Grace treated. We were starting to work on that. We didn't have, I think it was something like 75%. If we had 75% of it done, we could continue. So that put a stop to that treatment. So we have, like I said, done a lot of pre-commercial treatments out there, but we haven't treated that pulpwood size, and we treated the saw log size, but we didn't get that mid-size diameter stuff out of there. We had the crossing, we had the White Mountain Stewardship Contract came up. We decided to do that after the Rodeo Chetaskai fire to reduce the hazardous fuel. And at that time, everybody was in agreement that the problem with the Sierra Club and the other groups had with us, the Greater Hill Biodiversity Group, the Southwestern Biodiversity Group, their problem was with big trees. So we capped everything at 16 inches. We didn't treat anything above 16 inches. They allowed the White Mountain Stewardship Program to go through, which was good. We've gotten over, I think, around 80,000 acres on the National Forest treated. That's part of the reason why Nutrioso and Alpine and Greer did not burn up completely, like the houses that we lost in the Heber, Overguard, Pinedale area. Part of that contract we had going on over on the west side of the Black Mesa District, we had a fire over there called the Crossing Fire, and it burned up half the task order. We no longer had to pay the purchaser for that, but we took that money that was going to that, and we did another EA on the Show Low South area, another hazardous fuel treatment. And we've got that one through, and we've got a contract on it. The contractor came in, and he completed 10% of it this year. It's beautiful treatment, but he also has 4 other contracts going on in the forest. He's a main supplier for Novo Power, the biomass plant, which that area here south of Show Low needs that type of industry for that stuff to be treated completely. It's marginal timber country. It's got some good stands in it, some marginal, and some that is nothing but what we call biomass. So it's great that that contractor has got it, but he's got 2 years to cut it. So this would have been a good year. Hindsight is 2020. This would have been a good year to treat that area, but he left there on December 30th because we'd shut him down for 2 days. And normally that country's just way too wet and slick to work in the wintertime. But who would have known that we would have stayed dry? So he went out and worked in other locations. So it's going to get done, but it's not going to get done before this critical fire season coming up. And people have asked me a lot of times, well, how's come the reservation is got so much better stuff done than what you've got? Well, their stuff was done basically in the middle part of 2008, 2009, something like that. We were doing stuff then too, but we went out into the middle of that. We didn't stay right on the rim road. We didn't stay on the highway because we can respond to those areas very quickly. We went out into the areas that we can't respond to very fast. And that's where we did the pre-commercial treatments out there with some of that money that they had got through the Healthy Forest Initiative. They treated that stuff right along the rim road. We went interior with it. And the stuff that we did prior to that, back in the 90s, that stuff is growing. The forest is always growing. So the stuff that was done in 2008 looks much better than what the stuff that was done in 1996. So, but we got the contract in place. We just need the contractor to come back, and we can't order him in there to come back and do it. So, he knows the best place for him to work to make his business viable, and that's what he will do. I'm done. Unless there's any more questions.
And this, there is a couple of little, did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, just one.
Sure.
Can you come up to the microphone, please?
Sorry, it'll take a minute.
Yeah, no problem.
Had a disease none of you hopefully have ever seen called polio, so I walk a little odd. Okay, my name is Russ Theodore. I live on Happy Trail out in Borden Ranch. We're moving up here full time. I bought a place 2 months after the Rodeo Chudesky fire because I've always loved this area. My concern is I've been watching all the national, international weather stuff, and they say it's El Nino City coming out. Do you have no hope for that?
They're telling us that we're having a weak El Nino, is what our meteorologists from the Flagstaff Weather Service, and we have a meteorologist that works for the Interagency Center in Albuquerque for the Southwest, and they tell us it's going to be a weak El Nino, and they say that we need a strong El Nino to really have the effect from El Nino
Okay,
to get the wet weather in
so
here.
it'll be hopefully helpful, but not the solution.
Right, yeah. We gotta deal with what's dealt to us.
I understand.
And
Thank you.
predictions are predictions. I did have a lot of other slides on here. I see that they're going through. And these are some aerial photographs that shows the density out on the forest versus the density within the town area. And I'm not going to say we're perfect. We got a long ways to go. Once that contract is done, we will be fielding a lot of calls on what the heck are we doing, turning it into a desert, because it's going to be very open. But that is what this forest used to look like pre-settlement times, what we're taking it to. It's forest restoration work. But you'll see there's plenty of dense stands within town. Right here, you're looking at, that's Sholo Lake there, and you're looking at that wagon wheel area, and you can see the area on the forest boundary is that orange line there. Excuse me, that's the reservation boundary. Right up above his arrow there, you can see the reservation, and then you can see the forest coming up through here. And you can see the areas that we have treated on the forest, and plus areas that we haven't treated. But, between the pre-commercial thinning and the broadcast burning, we've got some pretty good treatments out there. It's just not final to where, that we're satisfied with it.
Well, and one of the things too that we find is it's a living thing, and so it's always going to take maintenance.
Right.
So,
Once that is all cut out, if we don't keep fire on the ground, I had a big grant to do about 1,500 acres of burning in Sholo South. Well, we came up with the EA, and our timber people were able to go out and mark the trees. I stopped the burning because we don't want to burn trees that have paint on them, because then they got to go back and paint the trees for designation of leave or cut trees and such. So we did not do that burning. But we have had some fires in here on some red flag days. We had one about this time last year, a red flag day, just between Sholo and Summer Pines. And it was in a treated area, a pre-commercial treated area that we had chipped the fuels from. And we caught it no problem at all between Sholo and the Forest Service. So there are treatments out there, but there's other areas that haven't been treated. So my big thing is I tell people to continue to do the treatments on your own property. You know, take care of that yourself. What we get from the forest, we get from the forest. But you can take care of stuff on your own property by any means. I know you've got a situation that you need some help with, but people need to take that responsibility. This Sholo South area, I'm sorry, I thought I was done, but
Yes,
we go into restrictions. Nowadays, we have a group, Mary Springer, and with the Navajo County, Apache County has a representative, the fire departments do, and I believe the city of Sholo, I'm not sure who's on that, law enforcement, the Forest Service, and they get together and they talk about when we're going into what we call stage 1 and stage 2 restrictions. And Mary probably talk about that a little bit. But then is what we do, also we do a lot of area closures. The Sholo South area is always the first place that I close. The Sholo South and the Rodeo Chetasky all the way across Pinedale. That's our first area that we close, along with Timber Mesa and Porter Mountain, because of the communication sites out there. So that's some of the mitigation measures we'll do. Maybe after all this treatments are completed out here, we might not have to close this area. I don't think we will.
So moving on, this next little bit, we've got a video that we're going to show, and it's about 5 minutes long, but it's very impactful. It's created by the Ready, Set, Go people, filmed in California, but very applicable to our area, and it encompasses all the different aspects of this program.
I got very panicked because I could see flames right behind our house on the hills, on the ridge, and that's when I started getting ready.
I ran upstairs long enough to get my purse and the car keys, and by the time I ran downstairs, our house was on fire.
The winds were out of control.
It's amazing how fast the whole thing happened.
It was a blizzard of embers.
When the embers started flying in, big chunks of them, that's when we really panicked and we said, now it's time to go.
I told my daughter, pack things like you are not going to come back.
It was absolutely, it was like Armageddon.
Wildfires can be as unpredictable and uncontrollable as the winds that often drive them. Fire moves dangerously fast. It is wild, powerful, and erratic. You never know when or where a fire will start or end. Homes near natural areas, what firefighters call the wildland-urban interface, are beautiful places to live. The natural beauty of these areas adds to the quality of life, but not without risk. Fires are a part of their ecology. Living near the wildland means living with the threat of wildfire. That's why we're introducing the Ready, Set, Go program, a wildfire action plan that gets you, the resident, involved early on in protecting your home. We are going to teach you how to properly prepare your house, your family, and pets for the next wildfire. Our goal is to have residents following our evacuation orders early with the knowledge that they've done everything they can to protect their homes. There are two major ways to make your home wildfire ready so you can go early as the fire approaches. The first step in preparation is adding or retrofitting your home with fire-resistive building construction features.
Hardening the home is a term that we're using for taking those measures necessary to protect your home from flames, radiant heat, and ember intrusion.
To get more information on making your home and property wildfire ready, check with your local fire department. The other step in preparing for a wildfire is creating defensible space.
Defensible space is a buffer between the flaming front and your home. By keeping the vegetation down and away from your home, this allows for reduction of direct flame impingement on your house.
Firefighters always recommend that you comply with any evacuation order and go early. Staying and ignoring an evacuation order may be a fatal mistake. Most brush fire fatalities occur when people evacuate too late and are overtaken by a fast-moving fire. To avoid this, be ready for evacuations well before they are ordered.
So that's why we're talking to you today, is to let you know that get out early. Don't stay. Don't think you're going to survive in these environments. It's not going to happen.
Leaving early doesn't just give you, your family, and pets the best chance of survival, it also leaves the roads open for firefighters to move around more freely.
When we're looking at an evacuation, we have to give ourselves enough time for that entire area to evacuate. So you can't look at it as just how long is it going to take me personally to evacuate, because you're not accounting for a lot of different things that could potentially go wrong.
When I see all the things that were melted, in our case, we would not stay.
It's not important to me. You know, my house is perishable, and I have good insurance, but all that means is I just want to take care of my kids.
A fire is not worth your life.
In the end, remember, your safety and the safety of your family should be your #1 priority. It's a high-risk gamble to stay during a wildfire. Know all the consequences of staying and everyone it affects. The best bet is to get your home wildfire ready now. Be set when the fire comes and go early.
These next few slides here are some that were taken from the Wallow fire, and just kind of give people an idea. When we're fighting wildland fire, it's completely different. We don't have tons and huge amounts of water that we can carry with us and fight these fires. We have to fight these fires with whatever we can carry in our hands and our backpacks and things like that. So it's typically a matter of removing fuel from the path of the fire and getting it to stop at that point. So in some cases, we may be able to get ahead of the fire and do some burning in front of it. So that way, that's a very quick, fast, easy way to get rid of that fuel in a controlled situation and do some of that ground, thinning out that ground fire so that it can't continue on. It runs out of fuel at that point. And you can, most of us have been here through this, when the Rodeo Chetasky fire went through here in 2002, and then also in the Wallow fire, creates a lot of huge amounts of smoke. Lots of different issues and problems come about because of that kind of stuff. And it's just like this slide here says, it's not a matter of if, but when. We chose to live in the wildland urban interface. We chose to live in the forest. So we need to do those things to protect ourselves and our property from devastation and catastrophic wildfire. And so some of the things we're going to talk about now are, because they've done some studies, and in all of the catastrophic wildfires, they've figured out that about 80% of the homes that were lost could have been saved just by doing some simple things. And so those are the kind of the things that we're going to talk about right now. And when we talk about, the first thing is creating defensible space around our home. And what we've done is, I know years ago, after the Rodeo Chetasky fire came through, they came out with a program, and I don't know if it was here before then or not, but I know because of that, the area around here got very educated about what they called FireWise. Now, I went through a whole bunch of those classes myself. I got educated, and got all the certificates on how to be able to go out and teach people how to make their homes fire-wise. But it was very complicated. And I think people, because of that, kind of just gave up because they didn't have an idea of where to start, what to do. I mean, they were throwing out terms like basal area and things like that. And it was even confusing to me and myself. And I grew up in a logging family. So Ready, Set, Go came out, and I really like this program because it's almost like, for lack of better terms, Firewise for Dummies, if you want to call it that. And so Firewise and this Ready, Set, Go program, they create zones. And so they kind of make it easy to understand. Zone 1 is that first 30 feet outside of your structure of your home. The most important or most costly, the most expensive piece of thing that you have on your property is your home. And so that first 30 feet is very critical. And that's the one thing that we want to get everybody to at least concentrate on, especially in years like this. So anything that can burn on the ground, rake it up, get rid of it, remove it, replace it with things that can't burn. Putting gravel or wet grass, things that cannot burn very easily for that first 30 feet. When you have trees in those areas, make sure all the dead and diseased and dying parts of those trees are removed. We don't want to see branches and overhangs. We would like to see 10-foot clearance at least between the branches and the roof and eaves of our houses. A simple thing as cleaning the rain gutters from the pine needles that fall in there and other leaves and debris. Clean that stuff out of the rain gutters. Brian's going to talk about a little bit more stuff. And then once you get outside of that 30-foot, some people, that may be all the more property that they have. And, that becomes the most critical. But if you have more property now from that 30-foot to 70-foot out, so basically 100-foot out from your home, that's zone 2. And there we start looking at making sure we have some spacing between the trees. That you don't want the crowns to be touching. Now, does that mean we have to clear cut your whole entire property? No. You can have a little group of trees here and maybe a single one. You want it spread out so that there's some open canopy. You can see some daylight, and it's not just a dark canopy covering over your property. In fact, I've been taught that you take your property and you want about 1/3 of it to be covered with tree canopy. And so you got to kind of guess and estimate how much that is. And the other thing that this creates is a healthy forest, because all of our trees, just like in a garden setting, they're all fighting for the same amount of water. When we plant a garden, we may put 4 or 5 kernels of corn in a hill, and once they start growing, we pluck out and get rid of all but the 1 or 2 that are good. And that's the same thing we need to do with our trees and our shrubs and plants in our property. We need this to be healthy. Healthy trees can withstand the bark beetles, the diseases that come through. If they're all stressed and hurting for water, they don't have those defenses mechanisms in order to protect themselves. And so then they become susceptible to diseases and other things like that. So Brian's going to talk about kind of hardening our home. And
we have, when they say harden your home, what we're trying to do is actually build your home to where it's a little more fire resistive. There's a lot of construction that we can use that isn't as susceptible to fire. One of the biggest challenges that we have is we come up to the woods, we want to have the cabins, and we like that log-sided home. The biggest challenge is what do we put on that home? We put a flammable material on it to give it that glossy sheen. They now make these things, and in hindsight of realizing maybe that's probably not the best thing to do is pour gasoline on a home in an urban face. Urban interface. So what they've done is tried to create these treatments that we can put on our homes to make them less susceptible, that they don't react as easily to heat and flame impingement. But think of it even simpler than that. Cleaning out the gutters. When they accumulate with a bunch of pine needles, all we're doing is giving a source of ignition on our home. And it doesn't take much to get pine needles to ignite. You know, putting screens on all of our openings to keep these firebrands and embers from being able to get into our homes, as well as, you know, treating the roof. You know, we've gotten away from the wood shake shingles. They used to be the big thing, and we realized that putting wood on a home is just making it more susceptible to flame. So what they look for is they want to put it on a actual rated roof assembly. You know, this can be the clay tiles, this can be the treated asphalt shingles, and there's many different styles of construction now. Dual painting your windows. As a lot of us will realize that this has a dual impact for us. Dual pane windows are also more energy friendly, so they encapsulate your home. They keep the cool air in, keep the warm air in, but they also give that reduced chance to fire breakage. When they heat up, it gives you 2 panes. Just one second. And you want to limit the size and number of your homes. One of the biggest disadvantages is what do we put on our homes? We put these big glass entryways. And if they're not rated to sustain high amounts of heat, once they break, you have no defense in your home anymore. It's just a wide open path for that heat and smoke and everything else to travel into your home. You know, one of the things that when we say it's time to get ready to leave, we want to make sure that all the windows are closed and secured, that the screens are actually in place, that we use the right kind of interior decorations. We don't want to cover our windows with something that is highly flammable. They do make flame-resistant curtains that are less susceptible to that. The big one is balconies and decks. Most of us have them. But when you think about it, we live in a community where the wind blows. Well, what blows underneath our decks? We get all that pine needle and the waste and the waste vegetation and everything that blows right up underneath it. And as you can see on this slide here, one of the things that we can do is actually try and fence off the underside of those decks so that accumulation can't get there as easily and mass itself up there. The balconies are pretty much the same way, in the sense that we put stuff on there. We always put furniture on our decks. We put decorations out there. So when we know that we're preparing for wildfire, we actually want to get those off of the deck, get them away from the home, and get them in a place where they're not, if they did ignite, they're not just adding fuel to the fire. We had a couple questions.
Is this slideshow available somewhere, and where can we get more information on hardening our home?
Okay, the question was asking about the slideshow. Yes, we're going to make this slideshow available on our websites. Once we're done here tonight, I'm working with our IT people to get it on the Show Low City website, Show Low Fire website, Lakeside Fire website, I believe Pine Top Fire website.
And if you go to the Navajo County website, we already have that posted. So go to www.navajocountyaz.gov, and this is already on there.
And I can get you information on construction materials and hardening the home. That's any one of the fire departments up here. We've each got a fire marshal, and we can help you answer those questions. Mark, you had a question?
Yes, my question is quite simple, sir. I know my house is vulnerable because it's got wooden siding, and I'm afraid it does have those wooden shaker, what are they?
Your shake shingles?
And ideally, double pane windows on all my windows, and some kind of metal siding and metal roofing like my neighbor's house across the street. That would be ideal. However, like I said, I'm on a pension, and I need to know if there any way I can get some grant money to help me.
You know, actually, there are some, I know there's NACOG. I don't know if you've talked with them.
I've already had them help me out. They put double panes on some of my windows. It was during the winter to help me cook, reduce the heat loss.
Right.
But as far as fuel, as far as hardening the house against fire, if they've got some grant money, I'd love to apply for it.
And we can work on that with you as well. And I know when you have the wood siding, it's not always that it's that bad. And it's what you want to look for is where there's rot and decay.
Mhm.
Those are the areas that may be susceptible, because wood sidings, a lot of the wood siding has been treated and is somewhat fire resistant. It just depends on what you have, and without being able to see it, it's kind of difficult to say yes or no.
Comes around
Right.
to the wood chipper, they can take a look. The problem with my house is there's not much defensible territory to the east and to the west. I've got neighbors very close to me on either side, and they've got some low-growing pine shrub that overlaps my fence, and they've also, or I don't know if it's mine. Yeah, some of it's mine, some of it's theirs, I think. And then also the neighbors 2 houses up from me, their houses are surrounded by pine trees. I mean, it's a dense canopy situation there. That's
Yeah.
where that is one place they really need to do.
Mr. Ridenhour, we'll get with you afterwards, and we'll get your address, and we'll set a time. We'll come visit with you, and we'll walk your neighborhood with you. How's that?
Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful.
And to address the concern, what this is we understand that a lot of folks have worries about neighbors. What this is trying to be a community awareness, that it's not just one person's responsibility, but it's something that all of us can do. That every homeowner in Show Low, Pine Top, Lakeside, Linden, the surrounding communities, these are the little things that you can do to help us further prepare for what lies ahead. Continuing on with hardening the home, a lot of us up here heat with propane gas, or we bring in our own wood to burn in wood fireplaces. Well, one of the things that we do is we actually bring all that wood right close to our homes. We don't want to have to walk out 20, 30 feet in the snow to go get it. So we bring it close. Well, during the winter, not a bad thing, but we'd forget to take it away from the home during the summer. So what we try to do is we try to get all of the combustible materials, such as the wood, the places, as far from the home as we can get it. But you want it to be stacked and orderly and taken care of. And the propane tanks is the next thing. A lot of, now that we've got codes in place, these tanks can't be within 10 feet of your home. But if they predate the code, that is one thing that we're trying to do, is encourage them to actually move the tank farther away. It's the next part here is one that's a big concern for us, and it's not just necessarily an event of a wildfire. This is the easiest thing a homeowner can do. If we remember back in 2002, it wasn't just Linden, Show Low, White Mountain Lakes, Pine Top, Lakeside. We had fire trucks from all over the state. Well, we know where we live. We know our address. We know how to get directions. But these engines coming from surrounding areas, or law enforcement, or anybody that's coming to assist us, they don't know. But the one thing that we could put on our homes very easily is address markers, so that they're reflective, that we can actually find your house. If the local guys have trouble finding your house, what's going to happen when we bring in resources from all across the country? It's very easy to say, well, meet me at the Dairy Queen. We only have one. Those of us up here know that. But how about guys from other parts of the state who go, where is Show Low? So this is something that we work on. We try to get reflectivity on the numbers. If you look at the slides, one will show you visible, and then one shows you not so visible. If the numbers are hard for us to see, how hard are they going to be for everyone else to see? But we want these to be able to be seen day or night.
This here is just some examples that we've given to kind of help people understand that ladder fuels, anything that can take a fire from the ground fire and take it up into the tops of the trees, those are ladder fuels. We want to try to eliminate that, because that's a big hazard. So here's a couple of places where treatment was being taken care of, and these are the ladder fuels that are being thinned out. We like to see anywhere from 6 to 10 feet cleared up, where there's open space from the ground up. This is a picture of one where that's been taken care of. And you can see this is, even though there probably still could be some more thinning done on this piece of property, it's much more defendable. And we still live in the forest, and we're not looking at trying to get rid of every single tree on every property. This is an area off of Penrod Road over in the Timber Mesa area that, working with the Forest Service, we're hoping to sometime in the near future do a before and after, so people as they're driving down the road can see a very visual drastic look of this side of the road is bad, that side of the road is good. And hopefully maybe we're working with the county roads department, we can create some signs or some monuments, because there's a pull-off not too far from this area where if people wanted to stop and take a look and read a little bit more information, that we can get some signs put out there and stuff too. So this is kind of a project that we're working on right now. Here's an area that's being thinned out. You can see before you couldn't see the houses back behind there. Now they've done some treatment in there, and you can see the piles of chips and whatnot. They're in the process of cleaning it up and making it more of a healthy forest, what we need to. Here's an area of a person's property that they've done a really good job of cleaning it up. We're going to turn time back over to our officers at this point, because Officer Garber and Officer Provost about talking about evacuations, and this is something that's very people need to understand that we may get to that point where we need to evacuate, and we're going to, as firefighters, we're going to be taking care of the fire. They're going to be taking care of the evacuations, and they've got their processes, and so we're going to let them talk about that.
Yeah. All right. As was mentioned before, unfortunately, we do have gotten a lot of experience over the years handling fires. We've dealt, over the years with the Cottonwood Fire, the Rainbow Fire, the Rodeo Chetasky, the Wallow Fire. And one thing that taught us is none of us can do it alone. And so when we go into an evacuation, there's going to be a lot of us working together to do that. And it's not unusual. You may be in the middle of Pine Top Lakeside and having a Show Low or a Snowflake Taylor or Navajo County officer knocking on your door. That's going to happen. But when that does happen, you need to be prepared to leave. In these situations, a lot of it, evacuation is very fluid. Depends on where the fire is, how far it is from a residential area, determines how much notice we can give. We hope to give as much notice as possible so that you can prepare and self-evacuate. But depending on where it is, it may be an immediate evacuation, and you need to be prepared to leave. When we come through, one thing we've learned is marking homes so that the firefighters and the officers coming behind know that house is evacuated or somebody is still there. And so we've come up with these evacuation tags. The green one would give to the homeowner, and if you're evacuating, put the information, if you need to be contacted, where can we contact you? Hang this on the front door or the front gate, somewhere that's visible to anybody going by, so we know that you're out there. If a person refuses to evacuate, we'll give them the orange tag, ask them to fill that out, but we'll also explain that if you refuse to evacuate, understand we may not be able to get you out. If things go bad, there's no guarantee we can come back and help you.
If I may, on that note, Commander Provost, with the fact that if you stay behind, you are home. It's like home arrest. You cannot leave your property. You cannot leave your property to go to your next door neighbors and take care of things. You'll be given, your information will be gathered and it will be given back to the incident command. And then as briefings go throughout the incident, they will be informed, the officers will be informed that we have an individual at this address. If you are that individual and you are seen off of your property somewhere else, you will be removed from the area. And you will not be able to go back and get any of your belongings or anything. In a sense, it's like an arrest if we have to do that. The bottom line is if you do stay, you have to stay, period. You cannot leave your home. And that is the one thing we hope most of you will take the warning and the information and get out of the area so you're not left behind.
Well, and a lot of the reasoning behind that is so that you guys as law enforcement officers can be able to protect everybody's property, correct?
That is correct. And in these incidences, I was here for the rodeo fire. Of course, I work the Wallow Fire. And we have a lot of other agencies come in and help us protect the area that's been evacuated. So in these type of incidences where you've been evacuated, your home is well protected. There are a lot of officers. There's more protection with the amount of officers that come in to protect the area that's been evacuated than you would have regularly if you just live there on a normal day. I mean, we saturate the area with officers to make sure that, one, the property is protected and nothing happens. So there's quite a few other law enforcement that do come in: Maricopa, Pinal, Coconino, Phoenix. It's amazing how many people will come in and assist us in these situations.
When we talk about evacuation and leaving as early as possible, if it looks like area is going to be evacuated, it asks you to leave on your own and as soon as possible. And the reason being is there's typically limited number of evacuation routes. And when you're waiting until the last minute to leave, you're now competing for roadway space with the fire resources coming in to fight that fire. And we've had that issue in the past where we've got people evacuating an area and they're blocking the roads where fire engines can't get in. So the sooner you leave and get out of that area, the better.
So with this year coming up and knowing that it's kind of looking pretty grim, people understanding and knowing that, hey, get a kit together that you may have to be able to survive in your vehicle for, a day or two or more even. And, don't keep your gas tank more on the side of full than empty. It would be very devastating to be evacuating and run out of gas before you get out of harm's way. That would be devastating, and then it clogs up the rest of the roadway and things like that. So simple things to think about: making sure you have plenty of water, carry extra water in your vehicles all the time, different things like that. There's lots of different guides on, and you can even go on the internet, look for 72-hour kits. They've termed them different ways, and
If you go to ready.gov under preparedness, there is a lot of suggestions of what to put in a go kit. And you can print out a list or write down the list, but it just gives you a really good guide of what you should have prepared at all times. People that have to take medications, charging your cell phone. There's just a lot of good tips on that website as far as what to do to prepare. What to do and what to do to prepare in a go kit. And that's ready.gov.
Before you go on with that, back to the evacuations and the tags that Commander Provost showed, it also needs to be known that if you have children there under the age of 18, most likely they will be removed from the home by law enforcement, in the sense that if the parents are going to take it, then we'll remove the children. The adults can stay, but the children are going to go. And that needed to be addressed. Also on the orange tag, Commander, I think there is a place on that says next of kin. So when we have officers that come around in the event you do not make it out of the fire, we have information to call family. I mean, we take this pretty serious. During the rodeo fire, Sheriff Clark was, he's from the Hebrew Overguard area, and he learned real quick how fast the fire can turn. There's no time. You think you have time, and it just takes a matter of the weather changing or anything, and before you know it, the fire's upon you, and there's no time to get out. So.
And I think we lost over 400 homes in the Hebrew Overguard area. And in fact, I think even on that tag, does it ask for your dentist information so they can?
Yeah, that's part of, and I know that kind of sounds a little bad, but it's important to us that, obviously if you're going to stay behind, then we need to know how to make contact. The other thing with the evacuations, I know that the health department, what's
John Zimmerman.
John Zimmerman. I know that they have a sign-up sheet for those who aren't able to get themselves out. There's a list, and people have signed up already, and I think there's how many volunteers?
You have 80?
70 to 80 volunteers that he has that can come in and assist the homeowners who cannot for themselves get out. If you have any animals or stuff like that, we have other organizations, the Humane Society, folks out of Phoenix, or groups that will come in and take care of that. But they all come through the incident command and have permission to be there. So if you are not able to get yourself out of the area, then we need to get a hold of John Zimmerman through the health department, and then you put your name on that list. So in the event this happens, we know where you are. We can come in. They'll come in with the volunteers and help you get out.
If we have a large-scale incident, we'll be publicizing a call-in. So we'll have a coordinated effort for those things, Tony. They won't be calling John Zimmerman directly.
Okay.
We will be coordinating where people are supposed to call and how they contact our EOC, Emergency Operations Center.
And it should be used as a true emergency. If you truly honestly need this help and can't get yourself out of your home, if you have somebody who is wheelchair bound in your family, older people who need assistance, deaf people. There was a fire where some wildland guys were working the fire, everybody had evacuated, and there was a woman that was watering her garden. Well, she could not hear. She was deaf and had no idea anything was going on. So if you have neighbors or friends and you see that they do need this helping hand, be a good neighbor, look out for them, but don't, if you can get yourself out, do that. If you can find a place for your pets, please do so. Can set up your horses, you get a place for your cattle. That's, if you can take on that responsibility, then you're helping those that cannot.
Which kind of leads us right into the 311 information hotline, which Mary is our expert on that.
Well, I don't say expert, but we've been working really hard over the last couple of years to get 311 info to where we're posting timely information. I don't know how many of you knew that we had a couple tragic accidents over the last week or so. If you had gone to 311info.net, we were posting information because they had road closures. We do the same thing on wildfires and cold snaps, bad weather. We try and post information of prescribed burns if there's going to be smoke in the area. Just recently, over the weekend, we got notified there was a fire on Fort Apache. So those things are posted there. So 311info.net is a great place to get information. I don't have the phone number. There it is.
Sorry.
Also, from your cell phones, if you just dial 311, you will get into the call-in number, and there's 3 places you can go. Well, first of all, you can choose Apache County or Navajo County. Then you can get into the Forest Service hotline, you can get into emergency management or the health department. And any one of us, if we have alerts or notices, we will have a recorded message there that you can listen to. And a lot of times if you see smoke in the area, call that number and you'll get information. Possibly there are prescribed burns that's causing that smoke.
Is there any way you can find out when they're going to do
I believe the Forest Service has information. If you call the Forest Service office, they've got schedule of prescribed burns. But the thing about it is with their prescribed burns, the weather conditions have to be right before they do those as well. Mark?
Well, ma'am, a couple of times I've seen smoke and I've called 911 to report it, and then they've told me it's only a prescribed burn, and I thank God for that.
Well, just a couple other functional things with 311. Just recently, we have connected it to Twitter. So if people are tech savvy and can do Twitter, you can get messages that way. But also you can get a text message if you have a smartphone, or you can get text messages to you. You can go ahead on the 311info.net, click on the links to connect with us, and you can give the instructions on how to get those text messages to your phone. And if you need some help after this meeting, I'll be more than happy to show you how to do that.
And one of the things with our 311, which used to be 593, if you remember that, a couple of years ago, if in the event of a catastrophic event, such as a Wallow fire, a Rodeo Chattahoochee fire, this 311 line can be set up as a live call center. So rather than getting a recording, at that point, we have volunteers in place, and we're working on some training with our volunteers that would come in and actually answer these phones to be able to answer questions, because at that point, once we have a full-scale incident, then we're going to have lots of different questions that need to be answered. And then we'll have representatives from law enforcement to provide their information, representatives from fire departments and Forest Service, and we'll try to keep that information as accurate and correct as much as possible. And so this is where we want to try to get people to understand to go for correct information. I know as, you know, we've been on some incidences with our technology that we have these days. We've had some calls where pictures are going out before we ever get on scene. And things may be said, rumors go out, and a lot of that information is probably not correct. So if you want to get correct information, make sure that you're looking at, and this is one of those things, our 311 is information that goes directly through our emergency managers, whether it's Apache County or Navajo County. We can provide that to them, and they make sure that it's correct before we actually post it.
And in the great information age that we're in, people will post stuff, they'll tweet stuff. I know in the Waller fire, they had somebody monitoring those messages that were coming in constantly to make sure that information that was out there was correct. And if people were putting incorrect information, that they answered that right away. So rumors didn't get started and spread. So we do take serious what gets put out there. And we don't put rumors out there and we don't guess at it. We have to get the right information to share.
We also have a reverse 911 set up for those that are not as tech savvy and want to get a phone call if their area is being evacuated, for instance. And that you can actually go to navajocountyaz.gov and set that up. You can put your cell phone in or your home phone in there. And what we can do at the county level is we can actually highlight an area that might be evacuated next, or maybe be on 48-hour notice, and we can send them, and they'll get a call letting them know.
And if all you have is a cell phone, your cell phone would be the primary phone that you would put in that information.
And I want to touch a little more on evacuations. I know we had a meeting up in Pine Top, and there was a lot of questions about who determines when the evacuation goes. There was a lot of concerns of is everybody going to be evacuated? When are they going to be evacuated? How are we going to know when we're going to be evacuated? And the bottom line is that if the incident occurs and it's right there, it's imminent, and we need to get in there, then the agencies on the mountain, Pine Top, Show Low, DPS, county, we're gonna work as a team, and we're gonna go out there and make sure we get that area cleared. After that, we're gonna monitor what the Forest Service has as what they call trigger points. And when that fire goes, they're going to have certain trigger points. And once the fire gets to those trigger points, then we're going to be informed of that, and then we'll collectively make the decision. Okay, we need to evacuate this area, or what's in the path of the fire. So I know a lot of folks were concerned with, is everybody going to be evacuated, or are we going to go at it in increments or whatever? So I just wanted to put out there that we're going to go off of what we're told by the folks in the field. We're going to listen to that, and then we'll evacuate accordingly.
Right, like you say, it's very difficult because the fire, we don't know, we can't plan where it's going to start.
Right.
So we do go through and assess if say a fire is going to start down on the reservation towards Fott Ridge. I know that's one of our trigger points. And then at that point, there's certain areas within Pine Top that goes first, and then from there. But what if the fire starts within the community? Now that changes everything completely. So those are different things that we've discussed. We do training as much as possible. And since we don't know where or if a fire is going to start, it's always, there is a little bit of guesswork, but the best thing is to be prepared. and be ready to go at a moment's notice. And you know, honestly, I'm one of those guys that likes to pray, so pray for rain.
You know, earlier in the presentation, Dave mentioned the White Mountain Fire Restrictions Working Group. And what this group has done over the past couple of years is taken a look at the fire ordinances, both in Navajo County and Apache County, and also looked at the Forest Service, what they do for closures. And we got together as a group of combined entities to come up with something that makes sense and that is understandable to all of us. And so we used to be in restriction or out of restriction. There was no level of, can you have a campfire, can you do a barbecue, you know, you were either in or out. So over the past couple of years, we've refined it to where the counties actually have stages. So in stage 1, you still can have a barbecue, you can have a campfire, and our restrictions discuss and have definition of what that means. We're not talking about a huge bonfire. We're talking about something that's manageable and responsible people can have either in their backyard or at a campsite, to make it a little more reasonable. When you go into, say you had a permit that you could do some kind of a burn or something like a special event, we have in our restriction language that you potentially can still do that as long as you have that exemption, and the fire departments have blessed that. So you can still do things in the different stages.
Which, like, one of the things are special events that I know we have Sholo days, and we typically like to have barbecue competition. And the way it was written before, it was very difficult to justify having that, but yet it was in a very safe area. So now we've made those allowances to be able to still keep our special events, so because we are a tourist-based community up here, and there are certain things we can do safely, and we do, and just so the public doesn't think that we're just letting everybody do whatever they want. We actually go out, we inspect, make sure everything's, the equipment they're using is good, in good operating condition, and where they're going to have the event is in a safe and acceptable place to be able to still enjoy our mountain community and yet still stay safe. This is pretty much about all of the presentation that we have. If we have some other questions, or
One of the things that I'd want to impress is when we talk about evacuations, there was a picture in our slide that shows you've always got the one folk that doesn't want to leave. He's there with his garden hose, and he's going to protect that property. The thing that I want to leave you with is, what are you going to do with a garden hose that we can't do with fire trucks, with our aircraft, with our hand crews? When we've given the order to evacuate, we've gone through every scenario that we can think of. That is what we just feel is in the best interest to protect you. As it stated in the video, most of us have insurance, we can replace a home, but we can't replace you. That is probably the one thing that is foremost on our minds, is preserving life. Then we try to preserve property.
I had a quick question. I know at one time somebody was talking about trying to sell the fire departments a special foam wagon so they could go around and foam houses that were in a danger area. If possible, would you guys be able to do that?
so the question is does the fire districts, fire departments, Forest Service, do they have a special foam to treat homes with in the event of a forest fire? And to answer that question, yes, we do. But we don't always have the time to be able, that it takes necessary to apply that.
As long as there's a chance, you know?
Yes, we research every kind of trick in the book and possibly, different ways. But yeah, that is one of the tools in our tool belt that we do carry on a lot of our trucks, and it's a CAVS foam system, which is compressed air foam, and we can, depending on amount of time available and if it's going to be, if conditions permit too, because if the wind's blowing too hard, we're just wasting time and money. So there's always lots, but yeah, we try we're gonna do everything we can to make sure to protect people's properties and like Brian says, people's lives first.
Understand in Navajo County and Apache County and the agencies up here that we work with, you won't get this in other counties. We actually, we work very well together and we take emergency situations very seriously. We have learned from the Rodeo Tedeschi. We sat back and sit there, you have an after action review and you think, what was done right? What was done wrong? What can we do better? Then we had the Wallow fire again, and that has brought us up to a whole nother level. So the amount of information that you're getting, the fact that we have this Ready, Set, Go program and we're helping you guys help yourselves, this is stuff that we didn't do during the Rodeo Tedeschi fire, and we've learned that we need to get the education out there. Education is prevention, and that's very important. We were able to work, we have an evacuation plan. I don't know if there was an evacuation plan during the Rodeo Tedeschi. It was just like, everybody go. We actually have steps. We know who we talk to. We know who we call immediately. We work with Arizona Department of Emergency Management. We work with FEMA. Every single one of us, we actually have, like she said, the working restriction groups. We get on the phone, what is it, every week? Weekly.
During fire season.
During fire season to discuss what the fire is. And that includes everybody you see on here, the U.S. Forest Service, we have Navajo and Apache County, we have our fire marshals, our police officers, sheriffs, to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to, like they said, protect the community. That is the most important. And by educating you guys, we're giving you guys the heads up to go on and do the same thing yourself, giving you kind of a tools in your toolbox.
Yes, sir. That's okay, go ahead, I'll repeat your question for you.
Okay. I don't see any coordination with the tribal lands.
Actually, there is. The question was, any coordination with the tribal lands?
We do coordinate with Hopi, Navajo, and White Mountain Apache. They are part of our group. And so we do share information and with the BIA.
Yeah, our coordination efforts, and Mary's been one of the key components of making this happen. For years, we've kind of bounced around and talked to each other a little bit. We've always had a really good relationship with Dave Reisner and the Forest Service, and then the last couple of years, things have really come together with our group, our White Mountain Restrictions group. And like I say, all of our burn restrictions are pretty much the same. They don't read exactly the same, but the intention is there. And so it doesn't matter which town you're going through, city, fire district, or whatever, the things are pretty much the same. Now, does that still give the leeway for an individual fire district? Because say, for example, last year, White Mountain Lakes didn't, once we started coming out of fire season, well, White Mountain Lakes area was still very dry and they didn't get very much rain. So they stayed in restrictions a little bit longer. So that still gives us the flexibility to hold back in some areas, but it allows us to open up, and then we try to do everything pretty much the same.
A couple things we didn't mention. The counties and the fire districts have the ability to issue burn permits. And the reason why we do that is we have a delegation of authority through ADEQ, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, that says that we'll comply with their regulations. So people can go to our website, they can go to the fire districts and apply to get a burn permit. And this is allowed when we're not in restrictions. So we encourage residents to go ahead, if you do have things that need to be burned, it gives you the guidelines of what you need to do. You always have to call first before you ever do light up something that you're burning. But you get your permit online, you call the fire district. If the conditions are right, you can go ahead and burn. One of the things that gets confused a lot, people say we're in red flag because the wind is blowing. Red flag is determined by, I'll mess this up, but it's NOAA. It's the
National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration.
Anyway, it's NOAA. But they're the ones that determine, and there's a lot of factors that go into what's called red flag. It's wind speed, it's low humidity, so there's things that they take into consideration. There's usually time periods during the day when it is red flag. So just because the wind is blowing doesn't mean it's red flag, but there is a parameter that you can burn, and I think, is it over 10 or 15 miles an hour wind? Has to be below that?
Yeah, once the wind hits 10, we ask all burning to be shut down. And people say, well, how do I know it's 10 miles an hour? It's a good simple indicator to give you a good average is when you see a 4x6 flag, and if it's sticking straight out in the wind and staying straight out for pretty much the most part, that's a good 10 miles an hour or greater. If it's just kind of flopping lazily around, then you're probably under 10. So that's kind of a good way to judge. And the other thing is, a lot of our people have smartphones, and it's going to tell you the wind speed right there on your smartphone for the area you're in. And those are pretty darn accurate.
And on the burn permit, it gives you a number, but it's not just for those burning. If you really want to know, it's 367 fire. That number is changed every day. We monitor it, and that'll tell you whether or not the conditions per NOAA are burn days or not burn days. So we've taken a lot of steps to unify the White Mountain as a community. You may notice now that you could live in Show Low, and a truck that says Lakeside Fire Department on there arrives to your home to help you. And the interesting part is you may see a bunch of guys in Show Low Fire Department shirts getting off of that Lakeside truck. We've done a lot of strides in Navajo and Apache County to try and unify this whole thing, this region as a community. We all live here. We all rely on each other. So this isn't just something that Show Low is doing. This isn't just something that Lakeside is doing. This is a regional effort to try and make us as safe as we can, to try and educate everyone that we can. And we've made ourselves about as readily available as we can make it. We will come to you for these presentations. We have folks who are trained. Kirk and myself can do home evaluations, as well as Kelly Wood and Pine Top and some other folks. So we have made ourselves about as available as we can make. Now we're just hoping that the community will utilize that and take that pride in the community that we're trying to provide for them.
And we do extend that open invitation to anybody from tonight's presentation that if they would like to have this presentation brought to their own civic group, church group, we don't really, homeowners association, we can have the whole group show up, or we can do a condensed version with just a couple of us. However, we'll make it fit to your, we'll come to your location. We've got stuff we can travel. So, and we want to get this word out because, like just Mr. Ridenauer says, we need to educate the community, and because it's not just one person that's going to make a difference. We all have to strive to make a difference here. So
I'd like to say one thing on the red flag. The original intent of the red flag warnings was to alert firefighters to the conditions of red flag and the possibility if a fire was to start on that day, it's not going to be able to be controlled or contained at that day. So it's a warning of extreme fire possibility, and that we may not be able, if we don't make a quick response on it and it gets ahead of steam, we aren't going to be able to stop it. That's what red flag is about, okay? And it's been confused over the years. Some people thought, well, it's not a red flag, I can burn today. Well, that has nothing to do with it. You can still have a pretty good fire when you are not in red flag. And so it's up to the fire districts in the county to determine when to shut off the burning. Not just because we're having red flag days, it's when you guys feel comfortable on allowing the community to do their debris burns and stuff like that. So we've been very frustrated over the red flag program for years because of the different uses of it.
Right, and when you mention that, one of the things that I've been looking at trying to maybe institute is creating our own flag that says no burning, so that it's not a red flag or anything like that, but something that can alert the community to know that, hey, regardless of what NOAA may say, or the Forest Service, or the fire district, or the county, or whoever, we can throw up a flag that people know that, hey, it's not a good day to burn, and to notify them. And hopefully people can use common sense, but
Yeah, we'll get well-intended citizens and businesses that they'll fly the red flag all summer long. Well, that just waters it down, you know, that's a sky falling thing. So it is a big deal when the relative humidity drops below 15%. When the wind is sustained at 20 miles per hour or above, and it's not on your iPhone or smartphone. I got a dumb phone, but anyhow, it's not on that because it's a 20-foot wind. So it's not at eye level. You got to add about 10 miles per hour to get up at a 20-foot wind. So it's a 20-foot wind or a gust above 35 miles per hour. The humidity is the big driver. If it's 30% relative humidity and we got sustained winds of 30 miles per hour, fires will burn, and it'll burn through areas, but it's just not going to be as extremely burning when it drops down below that 15%.
And don't jump up and down when we get a little bit of moisture either. I don't know if you
No,
want to explain that.
no. The other thing is we've been talking about, we've had some weather people come in and some fuel specialists come in, and as dry as we have been, just because we had 1.5 inches of moisture the 1st of March, that stuff dissipated very quickly with a couple of windstorms, and we may get some storms here in the rest of April and May that will subside fire danger for just a few days, but it's going to dry out very quickly because of how dry the fuels are. So nothing will last very long unless we just keep getting it every 3 or 4 days, and then your praying has worked, Kirk.
And we have had spot fires this year as early as February. So it doesn't take much where we're at. We just had a fire not too long, was it last week? Week before? That, thank goodness, there were a lot of breaks and it was in a pretty good area. Otherwise, we could have had a running fire right into a bunch of homes. So the danger is there. We just want to be mindful of that, and to definitely reiterate that 1 inch of rain for us, I give it a week, maybe.
Right.
2 days, maybe a week before we're right back where we were, if not worse. So with that, I think we can open up for any questions, and if there are no questions, we can see you all later.
And we appreciate everybody taking their time to come and.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, can we watch this again on Channel 4?
My understanding, this will be played on Channel 4 several times. Also look for some PSAs, some public service announcements that we will be creating, not just on TV4, but as well as the radio. We have a weekly radio program.
Safe and Sound?
Safe and Sound.
I know Safe and Sound, you can go to the archives of City 4 TV archives, and down on the bottom, there's a little show that says Safe and Sound. Last month's show that we did was this same presentation. And so you can view that at any time because it's in the archives. So
And
you just have to go on the
We
internet.
broke that up into three sessions. We ended up doing the hardening the home and defensible space. Then I sat down with Tony and Dave, and we discussed the evacuations. Or no, it was just Tony. And then I sat down with Dave Reisner and Mary and discussed the forest. And then we talked about the ordinance and 311 and reverse 911. Also, if you have neighbors, let them know that these are going on, that they can listen to it on the radio. These guys are doing a phenomenal job at promoting these PowerPoints at their firehouses. So let a neighbor know, hey, this was very important. I learned a lot. I think that it could help you as well, and to take it serious.
And we do have these brochures, the little pamphlets that available at all the different districts. Some of the insurance companies have been asking for us to let them have them there for them to use as well. I believe City 4 is gonna post the different times where we have another presentation going on. Some of the ones that we have scheduled are for certain groups, and so they're not open to the public, but there are other ones. I know next Thursday night, there's one in Pine Top at their station up in the Pine Top Country Club. So I know that one's set, ready to go.
And May 8th.
May 8th. There,
Another one.
and so we're gonna post and get these out to, so the ones that are open to the public, people know when to show up and where they'll be held. But there again, we'll bring it to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.